and registration, and explain how you afford a brand new Escalade.
The same way anyone does. I work.
Work doing what? Vehicles like this don't usually come from honest work.
You're making a serious mistake. Special Agent Carter, Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Sheriff Paul Horton of the Riverside County Sheriff's Department saw a black woman in her early 30s pull into the Chevron station on Highway 47, just outside Millbrook, Tennessee. And something about the scene didn't sit right with him. The vehicle was a jet black Cadillac Escalade, brand new by the looks of it, with temporary tags still visible in the rear window. Horton had been sheriff for 6 years and a deputy for 12 before that. And in his 18 years of law enforcement, he developed what he called an eye for things that don't add up. A young black woman driving a $70,000 SUV at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night was one of those things. He pulled his patrol vehicle into the gas station, positioned it behind the Escalade to block any quick exit, and activated his lights. Through his windshield, he watched the woman step out of the driver's seat. She was dressed professionally, dark blazer, white blouse, slacks, like she'd just come from an office. But Horton had made up his mind before she even turned around. What Sheriff Paul Horton didn't know was that Special Agent Mary Major had just finished a 14-hour shift at the FBI's Nashville field office, where she worked in the Violent Crime Division, investigating drug trafficking organizations across 3 states. He didn't know that she'd graduated top of her class from Howard University before earning her law degree from Georgetown. He didn't know that she'd passed the FBI's rigorous background check, physical fitness test, and psychological evaluation. And he certainly didn't know that the Escalade had been purchased with money she'd saved over 4 years of federal employment, combined with a modest inheritance from her grandmother, who'd worked 2 jobs her entire life so her granddaughter could have better opportunities. All Horton saw was a black woman who, in his view, had no business driving a vehicle that expensive. Before we continue, let me know where you are watching from, and if you believe that success shouldn't be treated as suspicious based on someone's skin color, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the algorithm show stories like Mary's to more people who need to hear them. And subscribe because we're documenting every case where racial profiling met the wrong person and lost everything. Mary Major had stopped at this particular gas station because it was directly on her route home to her apartment in Clarksville, about 30 minutes north of where the FBI field office was located. She'd made this same stop dozens of times over the past year. Same station, same pump when it was available, same routine. Fill up the tank, grab a bottle of water from inside, maybe a bag of pretzels if she was hungry, then continue the drive home. Tonight had been particularly exhausting. She'd spent most of the day coordinating with DEA agents on a joint operation targeting a fentanyl distribution network. The paperwork alone had taken hours, and she'd skipped lunch to finish witness interview summaries that were due by end of business. Her feet hurt from the heels she'd worn to a morning briefing with the assistant director. All she wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and sleep for 6 hours before doing it all again tomorrow. She just inserted her credit card into the pump when she noticed the flashing lights reflecting off the Escalade's glossy paint. Mary's first thought was that there might be an emergency nearby, maybe an accident further up the highway. But when she turned and saw that the sheriff's vehicle was parked directly behind hers, blocking her in, a familiar feeling settled in her stomach. It was a feeling she'd experienced before, as a college student pulled over for failing to signal when she had signaled, as a law school graduate questioned about why she was in a nice neighborhood when she lived there, as a professional woman followed through a department store by security who assumed she was shoplifting. It was the feeling of being presumed guilty of something she hadn't done, simply because of how she looked. Sheriff Horton stepped out of his vehicle and approached with his hand resting on his service weapon. His body language was aggressive, his expression already set in judgment. Mary recognized the type immediately. She'd arrested men with that same attitude, that same certainty that they were right, regardless of evidence. She kept her hands visible, and waited. "Evening," Horton said, though his tone carried no friendliness. "License and registration." Mary kept her voice professional and calm. "Good evening, Sheriff. Can you tell me the reason for the stop?" "I'll ask the questions," Horton replied. "License and registration, now." "I'm happy to provide those documents," Mary said, "but I need to know what violation I've committed." "I wasn't driving. I'm parked at a gas station." Horton's jaw tightened. "That vehicle, how'd you pay for it?" The question landed exactly as it was intended, as an accusation disguised as inquiry. Mary felt anger rise in her chest, but kept it controlled. She'd been trained to remain calm under pressure, to de-escalate situations, to never let emotion override judgment. Those skills weren't just for her job. They were survival skills she'd needed her entire life. "I purchased it legally with my own money," she said. "Now what's the reason for this stop?" "Temporary tags," Horton said, gesturing toward the rear window. "Could be stolen. Could be a rental you're planning to keep. I'm going to need to verify ownership." Mary pulled her wallet from her blazer pocket, narrating her movements clearly. "I'm reaching for my wallet. My registration and insurance are in the glove compartment. I'll need to reach inside the vehicle." "Keep your hands where I can see them," Horton ordered. She retrieved her driver's license and handed it to him, then walked to the Escalade and opened the passenger door. The interior was immaculate. Leather seats, the faint scent of the new car air freshener she'd bought last week. Her FBI identification badge sitting in the center console cup holder where she'd placed it after leaving the office. She grabbed the registration and insurance from the glove box and walked back to Horton. He examined the documents under the gas station lights, and Mary watched his expression. The registration showed the vehicle belonged to Mary Bethany Mager at an address in Clarksville. The insurance was current and valid. The driver's license matched perfectly. Everything was completely legitimate and in order. This should have been the end of it. "These could be fake," Horton said, looking up from the papers. "Registration can be forged. How do I know you didn't steal this vehicle from the real Mary Mager?" Mary stared at him in disbelief. "You're looking at my photo on my driver's license, Sheriff. You can see it's me." "IDs can be fake too," he said. "I think we need to take this down to the station, get everything verified properly." "On what legal basis?" Mary asked, her voice rising slightly despite her attempts to stay calm. "I've provided valid documentation. You can run the VIN. You can call it in. Everything will confirm that I'm the legal owner of this vehicle." A man pumping gas 3 spaces over had stopped to watch the interaction. Inside the convenience store, 2 customers stood at the window, phones out. Above them, mounted on the canopy covering the pumps, security cameras captured every word. "The legal basis," Horton said, his voice dripping with condescension, "is that young black women don't drive $70,000 Escalades unless something illegal is going on. Drug money, theft, fraud. I don't know which one yet, but I'm going to find out." Mary's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You just admitted to racial profiling, Sheriff. You're detaining me based solely on my race and the vehicle I'm driving." "I'm detaining you based on my 18 years of experience in law enforcement," Horton shot back. "Now you can cooperate or I can arrest you for obstruction and impound this vehicle as evidence." Mary reached into her blazer's inside pocket, and Horton's hand moved to his weapon. "I'm reaching for my federal credentials," Mary said clearly, her voice carrying across the gas station. "I'm an FBI special agent, and you're making the biggest mistake of your career." She pulled out her FBI identification, the official credentials with her photo, her badge number, the seal of the Federal Bureau of Investigation embossed in gold. She held it out for Horton to see. For a moment, Sheriff Paul Horton's world stopped making sense. Horton took the FBI credentials from Mary's hand and examined them under the harsh gas station lights. The badge was real. She could see him testing the weight of it, looking for any sign of forgery. The identification showed her photograph, her full name, her badge number, and her assignment to the Nashville field office, Violent Crime Division. His face went through several expressions. Confusion first, then what looked like fear, then something harder, defensive anger. This could be fake, he said, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. Anyone can buy replica FBI badges online. Mary's patience, already thin, snapped. Sheriff Horton, those credentials are real. You can verify them by calling the FBI's Nashville field office. The main number is public record. Or you can call the Memphis regional office. They'll confirm my identity within 2 minutes. Even if you are FBI, Horton said, handing the credentials back, that doesn't explain how you afford a vehicle like this. FBI doesn't pay that well, not for someone your age. FBI special agents start at approximately $78,000 per year, Mary said, her voice tight with controlled fury. With locality pay adjustments for high-cost areas and step increases based on time in service, I make $92,000 annually. I've been with the Bureau for 4 years. I saved, I budgeted, I received a small inheritance, and I don't owe you an explanation of my personal finances, Sheriff. The man who'd been watching from 3 pumps over called out, "She showed you FBI credentials. Why are you still harassing her?" Horton spun toward him. "Sir, mind your business before I cite you for interfering with a law enforcement investigation." "Investigation of what?" the man challenged. "She's pumping gas." Horton turned back to Mary, his jaw set. "I need to search your vehicle. Make sure there's nothing illegal inside." "Absolutely not," Mary said. "You have no probable cause. I haven't committed any violation. You have no legal justification for this stop, let alone a search." "I have reasonable suspicion based on the totality of circumstances," Horton said. "What circumstances?" Mary demanded. "Be specific, Sheriff Horton. What reasonable, articulable suspicion do you have that I'm engaged in criminal activity? Because black woman in nice car isn't reasonable suspicion. It's racial profiling, and it's a violation of my Fourth Amendment rights." Before Horton could respond, a second patrol vehicle pulled into the gas station. A deputy stepped out, younger, maybe mid-20s, with an expression of confusion as he took in the scene. "Sheriff?" the deputy asked. "Everything okay?" "Fine," Horton said quickly. "Just doing a routine check." Mary turned to the deputy. "Deputy, I'm Special Agent Mary Major with the FBI. Your sheriff pulled me over without cause, accused me of driving a stolen vehicle despite valid documentation, and is now threatening an illegal search. I need you to call your department's internal affairs office before this situation escalates further." The deputy's eyes widened. "Ma'am, did you say FBI?" "Show him," Horton snapped. Mary held out her credentials again. The deputy looked at them, looked at Mary, then looked at Horton with obvious concern. "Sheriff, maybe we should—" "I said I'm handling it," Horton cut him off. Mary pulled out her cell phone. "I'm calling my supervisor at the FBI. I'm also documenting this illegal detention for my official complaint." Horton reached toward her phone. "Put that away." Mary stepped back, raising her voice. "Do not touch me or my property, Sheriff Horton. You've already violated my civil rights. Don't add assault to your growing list of violations." A small crowd had formed now. The man from 3 pumps over, the 2 customers from inside, the gas station attendant, and a woman who just pulled in and immediately started recording on her phone. The deputy looked increasingly uncomfortable, caught between following his sheriff and preventing what was clearly becoming a catastrophic situation. "Sheriff," the deputy tried again, his voice quiet. "If she's really FBI, we should probably call the captain." "I don't need the captain," Horton said, but there was desperation creeping into his voice now. He was trapped by his own ego, trapped by his refusal to admit he'd made a terrible mistake based on nothing but racial bias and assumptions. Mary looked directly at him and spoke with the cold precision of someone who'd spent years building federal cases. "Sheriff Horton, you have 2 options. Option 1, you apologize, return my documents, and let me leave. I'll still file a complaint, but it'll be administrative. Option 2, you continue this illegal detention, and I guarantee you that the FBI's Civil Rights Division will investigate this incident. The video evidence will be subpoenaed. Your pattern of behavior will be examined, and you'll face federal civil rights charges in addition to the lawsuit I'll file personally. Those are your only options. The gas station had gone silent, except for the hum of traffic on the nearby highway. The witnesses held their phones steady, recording everything. The security cameras captured every angle. Horton stood there, his hand still near his weapon, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. And then he made his choice. Not the smart choice, not the legal choice, but the choice his pride demanded. "Step away from the vehicle," he ordered. "You're under arrest for obstruction of justice." The deputy's face went pale. "Sheriff, no." But Horton had already reached for his handcuffs. Mary didn't move. She looked at the deputy. "What's your name?" "Deputy James Walsh," he said quietly. "Deputy Walsh, you're a witness to this. When the federal investigation begins, you'll be called to testify. Think very carefully about whether you want to be complicit in what happens next." Before Horton could close the distance, another vehicle pulled into the gas station. This one unmarked, but with municipal plates. A woman in civilian clothes, but carrying herself with unmistakable authority, stepped out. She was in her 50s, with graying hair and sharp eyes that immediately assessed the situation. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice carrying weight. "Captain Morrison," the deputy said, relief flooding his voice. "This is Special Agent Major with the FBI. Sheriff Horton stopped her, and there's been a situation." Captain Linda Morrison walked closer, and Mary saw recognition cross her face. They'd met before, at a multi-agency task force meeting 6 months ago. Morrison had been representing the Riverside County Sheriff's Department in a joint operation with the FBI and Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. "Agent Major," Morrison said, her tone professional but concerned. "What happened?" Mary kept her voice level. "Captain Morrison, Sheriff Horton pulled behind my vehicle while I was getting gas, blocked me in, and demanded to know how I could afford my Escalade. When I provided registration, insurance, and my driver's license, all valid, he claimed they were probably fake. When I showed him my FBI credentials, he said those might be fake too. He's detained me for approximately 20 minutes based on the stated belief that young black women don't drive expensive vehicles unless they're involved in criminal activity. He threatened an illegal search without probable cause, and 30 seconds ago, he attempted to arrest me for obstruction." Morrison's expression darkened with every word. She turned to Horton slowly. "Sheriff, is this accurate?" Horton's face was red. "I was investigating suspicious circumstances." "What suspicious circumstances?" Morrison cut him off. "Did you witness a traffic violation?" "No, but..." "Did you receive a report of a stolen Escalade matching this description?" "No." "Did you run the plates before you stopped her?" Horton hesitated. "No." "Did you have any articulable, reasonable suspicion of criminal activity beyond seeing a black woman in an expensive car?" The silence stretched out. Morrison turned to Mary. "Agent Major, I apologize on behalf of this department. This stop was unlawful. You're free to go." "With respect, Captain," Mary said, her voice steady but cold. "An apology doesn't address what just happened. Sheriff Horton explicitly stated that he stopped me because, quote, young black women don't drive $70,000 Escalades unless something illegal is going on." That statement was recorded by multiple witnesses. It's on gas station security footage, and it represents exactly the kind of discriminatory policing that I investigate in my capacity as an FBI agent. She paused, letting the words land. "I'll be filing a formal complaint with the FBI's Civil Rights Division. I'll be filing a personal lawsuit under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 for violation of my 4th and 14th Amendment rights. And I'll be requesting a full investigation into Sheriff Horton's pattern of stops to determine if this is an isolated incident or part of a broader practice of racial profiling? Morrison's jaw tightened. She turned to Horton. Badge and weapon. You're suspended pending investigation, effective immediately. Captain, I was just doing my job. Your job doesn't include profiling federal agents, Morrison said sharply, or anyone else. Badge now. This is why we share these stories, because accountability only happens when people are watching. If you believe that federal agents and everyday citizens deserve to be treated with dignity, regardless of their race, subscribe. We're building a community that refuses to let these incidents disappear. Your subscription tells the algorithm that these stories matter. Mary collected her documents from Morrison, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her system. She looked at Horton one final time. I've spent 4 years investigating civil rights violations, Sheriff. I know exactly how to build a federal case, and you just handed me everything I need. She got into her Escalade, started the engine, and drove away from the Chevron station, leaving Horton standing there with his badge in Captain Morrison's hand and his career hanging by a thread. The witnesses kept recording, the cameras kept rolling, and by morning, Sheriff Paul Horton would be the center of a storm that would destroy everything he'd built. The video footage from the Chevron station went viral within 18 hours. Someone at the gas station, either an employee or a customer, had sent the security footage to local news stations. Combined with the cell phone videos from witnesses, the coverage was immediate and devastating. By Thursday afternoon, the story was national news. Every major network played the clip of Horton saying, "Young black women don't drive $70,000 Escalades unless something illegal is going on." Legal experts called it one of the most explicit examples of racial profiling ever captured on camera. Civil rights organizations demanded immediate action. The FBI released a statement confirming that Special Agent Mary Mager was a decorated member of the Violent Crime Division, and that the Bureau took the incident extremely seriously. Sheriff Paul Horton was fired 6 weeks after the incident. The termination letter cited racial profiling, unlawful detention, violation of departmental policies, abuse of authority, and conduct unbecoming a law enforcement officer. Because Tennessee law allowed for termination of pension in cases of official misconduct, Horton lost his retirement benefits after 18 years of service. He lost his law enforcement certification, meaning he could never work as a police officer anywhere in the state again. The viral video ensured he'd never work in law enforcement anywhere in the country. Mary Mager filed her federal lawsuit 3 months after the incident. The complaint was meticulous, 42 pages detailing not just what happened that night, but a pattern of similar stops conducted by Horton over his 6 years as sheriff. Her attorneys, working with the FBI's internal investigation team, had uncovered 17 documented cases where Horton had stopped minority drivers in expensive vehicles, all without articulable, reasonable suspicion. The lawsuit named Sheriff Paul Horton personally, Riverside County, and the Sheriff's Department, demanding $40 million in compensatory and punitive damages. The county's legal team reviewed the evidence and came to a quick conclusion. Fighting this case meant certain defeat, massive publicity, and potentially even larger damages awarded by a jury. The video was indefensible. Horton's statement was explicit racial profiling. The plaintiff was an FBI agent with an impeccable record, and the pattern of similar stops suggested systemic failure in supervision and training. Riverside County settled for $40 million 14 months after Mary filed suit. The settlement came with a comprehensive consent decree requiring the Sheriff's Department to implement sweeping reforms. Mandatory quarterly bias training, body cameras for all deputies, a citizen oversight board with investigative authority, and a requirement that all vehicle stops be documented with specific, articulable reasons before any contact with drivers. Sheriff Paul Horton's personal life collapsed in the aftermath. At 47 years old, he was working night shifts at a warehouse for $15 an hour. His wife had left him 8 months after the incident, taking their 2 children and moving 3 states away. His house went into foreclosure. He filed for bankruptcy. Every job application that required a background check revealed the gas station video, and no employer wanted to hire someone with that reputation. Captain Linda Morrison was promoted to sheriff in a special election, becoming the first woman to hold that position in Riverside County history. She immediately implemented the consent decree reforms and pushed for even stricter accountability measures. Mary Major used a portion of her settlement to establish a scholarship fund for young Black women pursuing careers in law enforcement and criminal justice. She continued her work at the FBI with even greater dedication, eventually being promoted to supervisory special agent. She still drives her Escalade, but now she keeps multiple copies of her credentials easily accessible and runs a dashboard camera whenever she's on the road, a precaution she wishes wasn't necessary. The Chevron station footage became required viewing at the FBI Academy in Quantico, used to train new agents on how to handle unlawful stops and protect their civil rights, even when confronted by local law enforcement. It was also shown at police academies across Tennessee and neighboring states as the definitive example of how racial bias destroys careers and costs communities tens of millions of dollars. 5 years after that November night, Mary Major received the FBI Director's Award for Excellence in Civil Rights Investigation. Sheriff Paul Horton was still working warehouse night shifts, still carrying the permanent stain of being the sheriff who profiled an FBI agent, still living with a viral video that would follow him for the rest of his life. The lesson remains clear and permanent. Success isn't evidence of crime. Professional achievement isn't suspicious. And when law enforcement officers treat Black excellence as proof of criminality, the consequences can cost them everything, while the people they targeted continue to rise higher than they could ever imagine. Driving while Black isn't a crime. Owning nice things while Black isn't evidence of drug dealing. If you've ever been questioned about something you legally earned, this story is for you. What do you think really changes police behavior? Lawsuits, training, or something else entirely? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. We read every single one.